was demented, prejudiced, paroxysm at the National Association of Black Journalists event in Chicago yesterday as he signaled the start of his full-on, hateful, disgusting, apartheid and slavery-level-appalling campaign of birtherism and racism. Donald Trump must withdraw from the presidential election and be committed for psychiatric institutionalization, or be compelled to. There is no longer any room in the political discourse of the United States of America for anyone both so deeply disturbed and so deeply possessed by a hate of people of color that it reaches the levels of insanity and prejudice Trump not only displayed yesterday in Chicago, but gloried in. Moreover, there is no room in American society for anyone with such an immeasurably dysfunctional and dangerous mental illness as that which Trump showed again and again and again at the NABJ event. If he will not seek hospitalization for his countless psychoses and delusions and persecution complexes, he must be forced to. This country is not safe if Donald Trump is free to walk on its streets. This country is not safe if those who have mistaken him for sane or rational or patriotic or merely American are not shown in no uncertain terms that what he radiated yesterday on that stage is a disease and it is unacceptable to this nation. Psychiatric experts may be able to help Trump. They may not. Frankly, I no longer care. Literally, almost every day since I wrote, "Could Trump pass a sanity test?" for Vanity Fair magazine in 2016, I have been repeating that apart from his Neanderthal policies, apart from his inability to grasp that he is not intelligent, apart from his simpleton's perception of the world, there is a baseline danger that we cannot assess that clearly, from which advisors or party leaders or generals cannot save him or save us. And that is this: he is manifestly broken. His brain does not work correctly, and thus what we see now may ultimately be only the tip of an unstable iceberg. The risk the world is at is not just the Trump we see failing every test of that which makes one human every day of his life. It is the risk that from here he will get worse. Yesterday, here I criticized the National Association of Black Journalists for platforming Trump, and I would like to retract that criticism, apologize for it, and bless that organization for arranging, however it was arranged, to put the Trump you and I already know on display for at least some people who had not seen it or would not believe it was true. It was Trump's first genuinely unfriendly, not passive interview in years. And it revealed both his madness and the madness of his beliefs and his racial animus and his willingness to invent any excuse to suppress anybody who is not a white man of European heritage. He went full birther again. And now his campaign is full birther again. He went full racist again. And now his campaign is full racist again. He not only questioned the ethnic history and heritage of the Vice President of the United States, but he accused her of either changing that history or changing her statements about her own heritage. Trump's insanity permits him to be vague even in his apartheid-level racist accusations. 163 years ago, this nation took up arms to silence and disempower hateful, deranged creatures like Donald Trump. We now think 750,000 Americans died to stop what Donald Trump believes in today, with as many more wounded and or captured. that we continue to tolerate Donald Trump, that we continue to normalize Donald Trump, that we continue to let Donald Trump lead a national political party and serve as its presidential nominee is among the top 2 or 3 failures in the history of the United States of America. That an American news organization could summarize in its daily news roundup the disaster that was Donald Trump in Chicago yesterday, the existential threat to all of our lives that is Donald Trump every day, to summarize it in 234 words headlined, "Trump questions Harris's race," as if that were a legitimate question in a society that is not itself deeply disturbed, and then move on from that to its off-lead story, Taco Bell to test AI drive-thrus. That suggests that we are all stunningly comfortable lying here with our necks on the railroad tracks, that we have reached, if we had not reached it before, the point Patty Chayefsky described in the Mad as Hell speech Peter Finch recites in the movie Network. We sit watching our TVs while some newscaster plays clips of this asshole Trump accusing the vice president of the United States of changing her color at the exact moment his minions begin full-on birtherism, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. Aaron Rupar of the website Public Notice, whose newsletter you should sign up for, produced a supercut of the disqualifying Trump attacks on Harris, on black people, on his hosts, on America, which I have edited down here only slightly for time. And I would add that as Aaron posted this to social media, the Trump stooge, Jesse Waters, was going on Fox and claiming Vice President Harris is, quote, not African-American, technically, and the Trump fabricator and liar Laura Loomer was disseminating a falsified Harris birth certificate, and the gutter trash congresswoman from Colorado, Lauren Boebert, wrote, quote, she switched, and the Trump parking lot attorney Alina Habba said, quote, unlike you, Kamala, I know who my roots are and where I come from, and Trump's pet Fox host, Harris Faulkner, who was on stage as this unfolded in Chicago yesterday, dismissed the events there as things got chippy. As you listen to this, remember that this from Trump is not hyperbole, not politics, not even the standard Trump hatred and insanity that the cowardice of the media has allowed him to get away with for 9 disastrous years. This is the start of his presidential campaign, in which the psychopathic fascist Republican who hates black people and has always hated black people and will suppress black people will insist that he is the real victim here, because he will also insist the Vice President of the United States is lying about being a black person. Or, as Mother Jones put it in its headline far more succinctly, white man tells black journalists that his black opponent is not black.
People did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said, you can't do it with Zoom. Well, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late, just so we understand. I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working or something was wrong.
Mr. President, I would love if you can answer the question on your rhetoric and why you believe
I have answered the question.
Trust you with another 4
I have
years.
been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln. That's my answer.
Better than President Johnson, who signed the Voting Rights Act?
And for you to start off a question and answer period, especially when you're 35 minutes late because you couldn't get your equipment to work in such a hostile manner, I think it's a disgrace. I really do.
Let me just ask on to other questions here. Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
give me a
literally
definition
the words
then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a definition.
Sir, I'm asking you a question,
No,
a
you
very
have to
direct question.
Define it for me, if you would.
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much, and she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She is always identified as a black woman.
I respect either one. I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn, and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that
I think somebody should look into that too when you continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
Why come here? What is your message today?
My message is to stop people from invading our country that are taking, frankly, a lot of problems with it. But one of the big problems, and a lot of the journalists in this room I know and I have great respect for, a lot of the journalists in this room are black. I will tell you that coming from the border are millions and millions of people that happen to be taking black jobs. You had the best.
What exactly is a black job, sir?
A black job is anybody that has a job.
How do you turn it around? What's your plan for the black community when it comes to money?
So, first of all, it's very hard to hear you for whatever reason because of the fact that they have bad equipment, because I guess, this woman was unable to get the right equipment. But it's very hard for me to hear you, but I can hear every other word. It's very difficult, actually. But so I don't know if they can fix it or do something with it, but I'll do the best I can with it. If I came onto a stage like this and I got treated so rudely as this woman treated me,
oh my goodness.
And I'm fine with it because she was very rude, sir. Very rude. That wasn't a question. She didn't ask me a question. She gave a statement. That wasn't a question.
I repeated your statement, sir, actually.
You said you would.
Oh, absolutely. If I thought that I was failing in some way, I want people to be sharp. I'll go a step further. I want anybody running for president to take an aptitude test, to take a cognitive test. I think it's a great idea. And I took 2 of them, and I aced them.
Well,
I took 2 of them. But let me ask you.
Yeah.
I would like to have, what's going to happen to those people? What's going to happen to the people in Portland that destroyed that city?
But, sir, my question is on those.
What's going to happen to the people that tried to
those rioters who assaulted officers.
You have to ask,
would you pardon those people?
What's going to happen? Oh, absolutely, I would.
You would pardon those?
If they're innocent, I would pardon them.
They've been convicted.
And by the way, the Supreme Court just were convicted by a very tough system. How come the people that tried to burn down Minneapolis, how come the people that took over a large percentage of Seattle, how come nothing happened to them? How come the people
But sir, we're talking about people that were seen beating officers with flagpoles, dragging them down the stairs. They're on video. Have you seen that video, sir?
Oh, really? Well,
you would pardon those rioters?
They shot a young lady in the face who was protesting. They shot her in the face. You know, nobody died that day. You do know that. But people died in Seattle. Nobody died, but people died in Minneapolis. You know, people died at taking your jobs. These people coming in are taking your jobs.
Project 2025.
I think we have to leave it there by the Trump team. All right. So leave it. That is the last word.
And that, of course, was Prelude. From Chicago, Trump went to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and spoke last night after the NABJ event.
The contrast could not be more stark. On the one hand, you have a radical left puppet candidate who is fake. And on the other hand, you have a president who will fight.
Is there betting yet? Is there betting on when Trump calls her the N-word or something awfully close to it? I mean, his henchman Sebastian Gorka already called her the C-word.
She's a DEI hire, right? She's a woman. She's colored. Therefore, she's got to be good.
As a postscript, as a reminder, as an incentive to fight this creature Trump and his movement of hatred and deceit and gaslighting and pure, unadulterated, biblical evil. As a reminder that he will say anything at any time and contradict reality or a past version of his own self to any degree he finds necessary. 2 points. A spokesperson, an advisor named Lynn Patton, now says that in Chicago, Trump, quote, continually said that unlike Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, he's running to be president for all Americans. And if you're running to unite the entire country, you have to back it up with action like he did today, unquote. Yes, unite all Americans. Unite them just like they were united when we all had slavery. Or, just as Trump has always thought the united in United States means united under a Trump dictatorship. And maybe more startlingly, there is also this. 4 years ago next week, August 11th, 2020, after Joe Biden had selected Kamala Harris as his vice presidential running mate, and Trump and his team of scumbag rivals unrolled the standard attacks on women of color who have not shown sufficient deference to the white men like Brett Kavanaugh, unrolled all the insanity tropes about black women, called Harris, quote, a mad woman, quote, a nasty woman, quote, seriously ill. After that, Trump's spokesperson, Katrina Pearson, defended him against charges that he was being racist and anti-black about Kamala Harris, confirming that when Harris ran for Attorney General in California, Trump and his daughter Ivanka donated to her campaign. $8,000 in total from the Trumps to the Harris for Attorney General campaign. I'll note, Ms. Pearson said, Ms. Pearson being African American and now a Trumpist candidate for the Texas State House, Ms. Pearson told a media conference call, I'll note that Kamala Harris is a black woman and he donated to her campaign, so I hope we can squash this racism argument now. We are fighting evil. Evil for whom reality and justice and even their own past versions of themselves do not exist if they are inconvenient at the present moment. We are fighting evil that is centered around a manifestly insane, dangerous, delusional, committable madman. We must, by the law, by the ballot box, by both, destroy him and everything he stands for, or we, the United States of America, we will surely be destroyed instead. As Trump unleashes birtherism 2, we must, metaphorically, bury him and his movement under its rubble.
Well, Donald, I do hope you'll reconsider to meet me on the debate stage. Because as the saying goes, if you've got something to say, say it to my face.
This is Countdown with Keith Olbermann.
Still ahead of us on this edition of Countdown, I need a break from this crap. A friend of mine asked me yesterday, for the 1,000th time this year, how I deal with this every day. And I said, well, whenever I can, I try to go to my past and live there for a few minutes and visit the simpler times when all I worried about was things like whether or not my brand new seersucker suit would get dirty while I took the subway up to my internship at Channel 5 News here in New York. And somebody else yesterday mentioned the name of the sportscaster I happened to work for at that very internship. And so, come with me now for a few minutes to the far less thrilling days of yesteryear in Things I Promised Not to Tell, Keith the Intern. First, there are still more new idiots to talk about. The daily roundup of the miscreants, morons, and Dunning-Kruger effect specimens who constitute today's worst persons in the world. The bronze, the Trump factotum Dan Scavino, the media guy. This is from New York Magazine, and it's a story about funding Trump media. Just going to read part of this. The most promising person they reached was Patrick Orlando, former Deutsche Bank derivatives trader who had started an investment firm called Benesseri Capital. For Trump's birthday in June, New York Magazine writes, Orlando wrote a letter appealing to his ego. I was unaware of the extent of your brilliance, he wrote, according to the Post. On your birthday, my only wish is that you realize how proud we are of your successes to date. Mr. Moss and Mr. Latinsky, other funders of this outfit, persuaded Orlando not to send this, in part because the sycophancy was over the top even by Trump standards. I just want to protest for a second and suggest that there is no such point, that sycophancy cannot be over the top when it comes to Trump. However, the real issue is included in the next phrase. The sycophancy was over the top even by Trump standards, and in part because they knew Trump hated the idea of getting older. He did not wish to be reminded of his birthday. Also, New York Magazine writes, and here's the Scavino part, Mar-a-Lago has a microeconomy in which such intel is sold to supplicants by people with proximity to Trump. The Truth Social executives paid $15,000 to Will Russell, a Trump body man whose name came up in the Florida documents investigation, and $20,000 to Dan Scavino, Trump's social media director, who were in a position to find out things like his mood, when he'd be coming off the golf course, and when was the best time to call. Dan Scavino, corrupt maitre d'. The runners-up, two of our favorite people online, the utter frauds Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk. And Elon Musk is gone yet another day without overdosing. Congratulations, Elon. America's declining birth rate, Vivek Ramaswamy wrote, is a far greater risk to our future than, say, climate change. Well, of course, that's not true, but why would Vivek know that? He has an IQ of 7. He believes he has an IQ of 700. Yet most politicians are too scared to talk about it, and now it's apparently taboo. It's neither too scary nor taboo. It's just stupid. But here are the facts. Our nation's birth rate is now down to 1.62 births per woman, the lowest in history, and well below replacement rate. I could make a joke here about baseball and replacement level offspring, but I won't. It's not even that people don't want kids. In fact, American women on average have fewer children than they say they'd hoped for. The graying of America means an overloaded healthcare system and eventually higher taxes for all. Today, there are only about 3 workers for every retiree, blah, 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 blah. On and on and on. The birth rate crisis is a symptom of a deeper economic malaise. The right answer is simple: slash the oppressive regulatory state, drill, frack, end dumb occupational licensing laws and restrictions on new housing to unleash the supply of everything. What part of that is about having kids? Fracking? Somebody has to explain to Vivek Ramaswamy the difference between fracking and the other effing word? Musk's reply to this is priceless. A declining birth rate happens towards the end of every civilization and is a function of extended prosperity. Caesar tried, and Augustus succeeded, etc., etc. You mean Sid Caesar. It's just too bad that this problem that both of them perceive, that there are not enough new working age and youthful Americans, kids, that there aren't more of them here. It's too bad this could not be addressed in some other way than, say, eliminating abortion, forcing women to have children, trying to marginalize those who do not have children, and actually run an idiot for vice president who's made a career out of mocking people who don't have kids when his own sexuality is in question. It's just too bad there isn't some sort of alternate to that, an alternate to a declining birth rate. I don't know. Are there other people in overcrowded parts of the country, in the world, who would want to come here to the United States? Has anybody ever come here who wasn't born here? I don't know. I mean, I don't know of anybody like that. I mean, I just don't. I mean, could we have hard-working people, you know, just to pick a phrase out of the air, yearning to breathe free, come here and fill those roles that Ramaswamy is so worried about, and Elon Musk says it's the end of civilization because there aren't enough young people here? Could we bring them in from other countries to help us out? Other people to, what's the word? Emigrate here, or if you like the other version of the verb, immigrate here. You know, like the parents of Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. And Trump's grandparents. It will never surprise me, never stop surprising me, I should say, that these people, the children of immigrants, have already forgotten that they are the children of immigrants. The first Olbermann arrived here in the year 1847, and I think of myself as the child of an immigrant, and I have great pride in it. There aren't enough people here? Then why are you stopping them from coming here? But our winner, one of the people we should have stopped from coming here, Ryan Walters, superintendent of schools of the state of Oklahoma, religious nut bastard. Ryan Walters announces he is using Libs of TikTok, the hateful, prejudiced website account, to hunt down Oklahoma school employees who made jokes about the fact that Trump's ear got nicked so that they can be fired from the Oklahoma state and city school systems. Quote, "We cannot allow these individuals to continue to teach in the state of Oklahoma. I want to thank Chaya Raichik," that's the Libs of TikTok witch, "who brought this first to my attention of what she found online to show this hateful, nasty rhetoric." He then said he would fire them all using her data. And of course, Raichik has been connected via Libs of TikTok to more than 20 bomb threats across the country because whoever she targets, somebody threatens to kill. There is a simple solution to this, and this idiot Ryan Walters and this behavior in Oklahoma: boycott all products from Oklahoma. They export $6.1 billion every year in stuff, mostly aircraft parts. I know neither you nor I are buying any aircraft parts in the immediate future. Major companies are. Stop buying them from Oklahoma. Oh, and the other thing, and this is legitimately the number one agricultural export in the state of Oklahoma, pork. 1 in 50 jobs in Oklahoma is supported by the pork industry. I would discuss briefly with you the merits of not eating pork, of how much healthier you will be, and how much greater your conscience will thrive if you don't do it, particularly if any of the religions like this religious nut Ryan Walters are correct, and how you treat the weakest and most troubled of the beings of this planet determines whether or not you get some sort of reward afterward. If that's true, guess who is not getting a reward afterwards? That's right, State Superintendent of Schools Ryan Walters of Oklahoma, who we already know. We're not sure exactly how smart pigs are compared to human beings, maybe 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, but we do know that every single pig on this planet is smarter than Ryan Walters, today's worst person in the world! Boycott Oklahoma! And now to the number one story on the countdown, and I was literally asked about him the other day by somebody who did not know I knew him, and basically I had one of those instantaneous moments that prove that Marcel Proust was right. If you try to remember something or someone from your youth, good luck. You might get a vague image. It might be right, it might be wrong. But if you are unexpectedly reminded of the moment or the person, you can, for at least a brief instant, be transported back to them and to that time as certainly as if you had a time machine. The man's name was spoken, and suddenly I was 19 years old again in a brand new seersucker suit, stepping in from the always broiling midday sun of Midtown Manhattan before the subways had air conditioners, and into the seductive cool of a television newsroom 7 long hours before the broadcast was to begin, when all the elements are in place except the panic and the rushing and the shouting, when you can still quietly discuss which story should be the lead on the newscast, rather than threatening to kill somebody who tried to stop you from going with the fire instead of the boating accident. When the film hasn't even been shot, let alone developed yet. And yes, in 1978, it was still film. They were just making the conversion from film to videotape, and they were using both. And half the stories could be instantly assembled, videotape, but the other half were maddeningly delayed until the kid ran the film to the lab in the basement and waited for it to be developed. And yeah, I was often that kid, and I think I might be the youngest person in this country who can say he ran the news film to the lab to be developed. Anyway, the man whose name was mentioned to me was the first to succeed on radio in a big city in this country by simply talking sports with listeners who phoned in. This was in Buffalo, New York in the 1940s and 1950s and 1960s, though he was not from there. Born in Kiev, emigrated to Brooklyn as an infant, pre-med at Michigan, a quick radio stint in Grand Rapids, and the apt decision to not go by his given name of Morris Mazer. Then to the war, then to Buffalo, and the role of the sportscaster in town on TV, on radio, on the newscasts of the original Buffalo Bills, of the minor league baseball Buffalo Bisons, and the minor league hockey Buffalo Bisons. Bill, not Morris, Bill Mazer. Bill Mazer came home to New York City in the early 60s, and whether you like it or hate it, sports talk started with him. And it did not get much better than him. And what he did was not what you see now, where people like Stephen A. Smith and Chris Russo are paid to kill as much time as possible, or people like Skip Bayless are paid to turn anything into a controversy and anything good into something bad. Bill Mazer talked to people knowledgeably, pleasantly, rarely raising his voice. He talked to athletes, other reporters, fans, and he had a singular advantage. before internet, before the sports history industry, hell, before the first edition of the Baseball Encyclopedia came out, Bill Mazer knew everything. This was largely because he had a virtually photographic memory. Bill could, of an instant, tell you who won the 100-meter dash at the 1932 Olympics in Los Angeles because he knew how all 6 finishers did, that it was Eddie Tolan, then Ralph Metcalf, then Jonathan of Germany, then George Simpson, then Danny Joubert, and then the Japanese Yoshioka. And then he'd mentioned that Eddie Tolan's cousin was the outfielder Bobby Tolan of the Cincinnati Reds. And before you knew it, he was asking you who had the greatest outfield arm ever. And I mention this because I can remember parts of the conversation I had with him that followed that question about the 1932 Olympic 100 meters. Bill Mazer saw the list of finishers once and remembered it for the rest of his life. Bill also did television, network stuff. He worked NFL football for CBS, sidelines, in the studio, in the scoreboard shows. He did hockey. He did color. He did play-by-play. He did local games of the New York Rangers. He did the network broadcasts on CBS. He did the Knicks, the Rangers, the Nets, the Islanders, the local sports on Channel 5 here. And he had interns. And in the summer of 1978, at Channel 5, in my seersucker suit, I was one of them. Did he take me under his wing? Nah, that wasn't his style. Did he let me essentially produce his show, choose the highlights for him, watch as he showed me tricks on how to narrate those highlights, ask me why he was including some stories and not others, explain that it was okay to make a mistake as long as you corrected yourself as soon as you found out, nod with amusement but approval when the actual producer said that one night that Bill was going to take off, they should let me fill in for him? Yes to all that. He treated his interns like equals. And then there was that memory thing. They used to ask him a trivia question on the air every night, a question sent in by a viewer. Stump the Amazing Mazer in the commercial before the sports on the 10 o'clock news on Channel 5. And usually he'd start to actually answer it reflexively, and the news anchor, John Rowland, would say, "What are you doing? We want them to stay through the commercial to find out if you know the answer." And they'd both laugh. And it was obvious that Bill had started to answer so that nobody would ever think he was dashing off during the commercial to find the answer in a book somewhere. The newscaster Rowland even mocked the whole thing one night. This is from Eddie Spaghetti of Sheepshead Bay, amazing. On Sunday, April 22nd, 1979, the Rangers defeated the Philadelphia Flyers 6-0 at the Garden behind John Davidson's shutout to take a commanding 3-1 lead in the Stanley Cup semifinals. By this point, Bill looked somewhere between amused and bemused. The question included the key details. What on earth could the question be? John Rowland resumed. 17,380 fans were at Madison Square Garden that night. Give their names and addresses. Bill Mazer did not even laugh. Aaron Albert A., 125 Bedford Avenue, apartment 4L, Brooklyn, New York. Aaron Albert C., 17 Golf Course Way, Nutley, New Jersey. Aaron Albert V., the director, faded to black. I saw him last around 2008 in the old Yankee Stadium. He was alone in the clubhouse and shaking his head slowly. I went up and said hello. "My God, Keith," he said very quietly. "Other than Jeter, I don't know anybody here anymore." I told him the hell he didn't. He knew me. We talked for half an hour. I was his intern one summer, and the next July I was covering the same games and press conferences he was, and not once did he claim he discovered me. He introduced me to everybody I did not know. I had the good fortune to have this young man as my intern last year. I'm very proud of him. It was always like that. That conversation about the 1932 Olympic 100 meters, that was at his desk in the seductively cool newsroom at Channel 5 one evening when I was still his intern. And it ended with me saying, Dwight Evans of the Boston Red Sox had as good an outfield arm as I had ever seen, for whatever that was worth, and Bill said that was a good choice, but he didn't quite measure up to Merrill Hogue. Merrill Hogue in the 30s with the Yankees. I added, and the Browns. "No," corrected Bill, "just the Yankees. He played only for the Yankees." I was in a pickle. Bill Mazer was wrong. I stated my evidence. Bill, I have a 1940 baseball card of Merrill Hogue with the St. Louis Browns. Bill Mazur sighed. Must be a misprint, he said quietly. He then rose dramatically from his chair, cleared his throat, and as he reached to unlock the drawer that contained his copy of the finally published baseball encyclopedia — he was always an early adopter of new tech — he said to one of the producers, "It's always like this with these kids." He thumbed through the book. Hogue. Here it is. 1936 Yankees, 1937 Yankees, 1938 Yankees, 1939 Browns. Bill went silent. He replaced his copy of the baseball encyclopedia and sat down slowly and silently. He did not look at me, but rather at the news producer. Stanley Pinsley was his name. And as he had taught me, Bill corrected himself. "This, in turn," he finally said, "this one is almost as good as me." That's all I really wanted. I had, unintentionally, stumped the amazing Mazur. Bill Mazur died at Danbury, Connecticut in October of 2013 at the age of 92, and people are still asking me about him. Congratulations, Bill. And thank you. I've done all the damage I can do here. Thank you for listening. Countdown musical directors Brian Ray and John Philip Chanel arranged, produced, and performed most of our music. Mr. Ray was on the guitars, bass, and drums. Mr. Chanel handled orchestration and keyboards, and it was produced by TKO Brothers. Other music, including some of the Beethoven compositions, were arranged and performed by the group No Horns Allowed. The sports music is the Olbermann theme from ESPN2. It was written by Mitch Warren Davis and appears courtesy of ESPN. Our satirical and pithy musical comments are by Nancy Faust, the best baseball stadium organist ever. My announcer today was my friend Larry David. Everything else was pretty much my fault, as usual. So that's Countdown for this, the 97th day until the 2024 presidential election, the 1,302nd day since convicted felon Donald Trump's first attempted coup against the democratically elected government of the United States. Use the September 18th sentencing hearing. Use the mental health system and involuntary commitment. You've got it, President Biden. Use presidential immunity to stop him from doing it again while we still can. And anti-Semitic, anti-immigration Republicans, please stop shooting at Trump. The next scheduled countdown is tomorrow. Bulletins as the news requires. Till the next one, I'm Keith Olbermann. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, and good luck.